Mom told me to leave the house because you're not part of this family anymore. I said okay, and dropped the house deed on the table. Everyone went silent when I didn't flinch when Mom screamed those words at me. You're not part of this family anymore. In fact, I didn't feel much at all. Not surprise, not anger. Just a strange, hollow calm. Like my body had been waiting for this moment longer than my mind could admit. It was a Thursday evening. The kind of night where the air hums with something just slightly off-kilter. We were in the kitchen, where most of the family battles had taken place over the years. Same yellow-tiled floor. Same burnout light over the sink that no one but me ever bothered to fix. And that night, just like too many nights before it, I was being blamed for everything. For the unpaid car note, even though I'd paid it. For the groceries running low, even though I'd restocked the fridge 2 days prior. For my younger brother Travis not finding a job, even though he hadn't applied to a single place since Christmas. Mom was red-faced and trembling, gripping her coffee mug like it might fly away if she let go. Travis leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, smirking. His usual role, the favored failure, smug in the knowledge that I'd take the fall for whatever he'd done, or not done, this time. I didn't respond to the accusation. Just stood there, letting the words rain down, letting her fury spin itself out. And then she said it. You're not part of this family anymore. There was no dramatic pause, no tearful regret behind it. Just finality. Like she was kicking a stray cat off her porch. And that was when I said it. Quiet. Steady. Okay. I walked down the hall, the linoleum creaking beneath my boots. I opened the drawer in my room, pulled out the manila envelope I kept at the bottom, the one no one ever asked about. Not once. And I walked back to the kitchen, where Mom's breathing had started to even out, where Travis was still smirking like he'd won something. Then I dropped the house deed on the table. It made a soft slap sound against the wood, but it might as well have been a thunderclap. The silence was absolute. For a moment, I thought maybe no one had actually read the name on the deed. Maybe they were just confused, wondering why I had dropped some random piece of paper in the middle of their tantrum. But then Mom's eyes scanned the top line. Her lips moved, sounding out my full name like it was in a foreign language. Her hand trembled. Travis leaned over her shoulder and squinted. "What is this?" he muttered. "You're looking at the name of the homeowner," I said. My voice was calm, almost detached. "This house? The one you're standing in? I bought it 3 years ago." Travis scoffed. "No, you didn't. Mom and Dad." "No," I interrupted. "Dad left this house to the bank when he died. Mom was about 6 months from foreclosure. I stepped in, paid the lien, and refinanced the mortgage under my name. Everything in this house, utilities, taxes, insurance, I've handled it. Quietly. Because I thought keeping a roof over everyone's head mattered more than credit." They didn't speak. Not a sound. Mom looked like someone had unplugged her from the wall. She wasn't angry anymore. She was just short-circuited. Travis looked at me like he'd seen a ghost. Or maybe just someone he never really knew. I folded my arms and took a breath. "Every time you complained about how nothing in this house works, I fixed it. Every time Travis missed a payment, I covered it. When the power almost got shut off last winter, guess who called the utility company and paid the balance while Mom cried about it being too stressful?" Still no one spoke. I took a step closer to the table, leaned on the edge. "You said I wasn't part of this family anymore. So fine. That makes this next part easier." I opened my phone and tapped a few times. "Just so we're clear," I said, holding it up, "the power shuts off at midnight. I canceled the utilities this morning, gas, electric, internet. Water too, by Friday." "You can't do that." Mom's voice finally broke through the fog. Shrill. Cracked. "I can," I said, nodding slowly. "I already did." Travis stepped forward. "You think you can just kick us out? After everything we've done for you?" That was rich. "Everything you've done for me?" I repeated. "You mean the endless lectures about how I wasn't good enough? The times you borrowed money and never paid it back? Or when you got arrested and I drained my savings to get you out, twice? Travis flinched. Or maybe it's Mom. I continued, turning to her. You remember when you told Aunt Claire I was a burden because I wasn't married yet? Or when you told me to stop bragging about my job because it made Travis feel bad? Her mouth opened, then closed. I pressed on. You all had no problem living under this roof. No problem enjoying the hot water, the meals I paid for, the TV I bought. But the minute I needed something, respect, a little understanding, maybe even an ounce of gratitude, you made it clear. I was just the guy who paid the bills. Mom's eyes welled up, but I didn't stop. You said I wasn't part of this family anymore. And you were right. I'm not. I paused. The air felt thick, like the room itself was holding its breath. You've got 30 days to move out. Mom's hands started shaking. She reached for the deed again, like rereading it might undo what she just heard. You wouldn't really do this, she whispered. Not to your own mother. But I didn't answer her. Not with pity. Not with softness. I just stood there, still and steady, the same way I had stood through every storm they ever threw at me. Travis snapped first. This is insane. Where are we supposed to go, huh? I don't have that kind of money, and Mom's on disability. I turned to him slowly. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you spent 3 years mooching off the guy you keep treating like garbage. He looked stunned. Like the reality of his own helplessness had never really hit him until right then. I'm not heartless, I added. I'm giving you 30 days. That's more than enough time to figure out where to land. But after that, I want my key back. And I don't want you coming back through that door unless I invite you. Mom stood up so fast her chair tipped backward. You're going to put us out on the street. Over what? Some petty grudge? Not a grudge, I said. A boundary. One I should have said a long time ago. Her face was flushed now, desperate, scrambling for something to hold on to. You owe us, Tom. I felt the fire burn low in my gut. No, I said. You owe me. They didn't believe me at first. Not really. I could see it in the way they lingered in the kitchen after I dropped the hammer. In the way Travis laughed nervously, looking to Mom like she might somehow reverse the situation with a glare or a guilt trip. But I wasn't playing by those rules anymore. Tom, she said, with a softer tone now. The kind she used when she wanted to sound like a mom again. You're just upset. You're tired. It's been a hard year, I know. Don't, I interrupted. Don't walk it back now. You made your choice. I'm not part of this family, remember? I didn't mean it like that. She stammered. Yes, I said. You did. And that's the first honest thing you've said to me in years. Travis scoffed. You're gonna throw us out? Over words? Words? No, I said slowly. I'm throwing you out because of years. Years of being treated like I'm the outsider in my own home. Years of fixing everything just so you could break it again. Of covering bills you promised to pay. Of bailing you out of messes I didn't make. You've treated me like an ATM with a pulse. Like a janitor who lives down the hall. Travis was turning red now, pacing near the table. So what? This is revenge. I shook my head. This is peace. This is me choosing not to spend the rest of my life asking for a place I already earned. Mom dropped into the nearest chair. Her voice cracked. What about the mortgage? The food? We don't have anything saved. You did, I cut in. But it all went to Travis's failed business. To those fancy takeout orders. To weekend getaways. To your idea of getting by on my dime. She covered her face with her hands. I can't believe this is happening. I didn't say anything for a while. Just stood there, watching them unravel. For once, I wasn't rushing in to clean it up. Then I said it, calmly but with finality. You have until the end of the month. I'll shut off the internet and cable next week. Utilities follow after. By the 1st, I want this house quiet. Empty. Mom finally looked up. And where will you go? I'm not going anywhere, I replied. You are. The next few days were heavy. Not in a loud way, but in the kind of quiet that hums under your skin. No yelling. No bargaining. Just the sound of drawers opening slowly, closets being rifled through, and feet dragging across the hardwood like it all suddenly weighed more. I still came home every evening. Still slept in the same bed I'd worked 12-hour shifts to afford. Still sat at the same kitchen table they once used to stage their interventions and accusations. But everything was different now. They moved around me like shadows. Not speaking unless they had to. Not meeting my eyes. Like maybe if they stayed quiet enough, I'd forget what I said. Or maybe like they finally realized they were living in a house full of ghosts. Not the kind that flicker lights or slam doors, but the kind that never left, even after you broke them. On the fourth day, I came home to find Travis in the garage. He was staring at a pile of junk he'd kept for years: broken speakers, old clothes, a busted guitar he swore he'd fix. He looked lost. Like he was just now seeing what he'd built his life on, nothing. He turned when he heard the door open. "Where am I supposed to go?" he asked, no defiance in his voice this time. Just tiredness. Worry. Maybe even fear. I leaned on the doorframe. "You're almost 30, Travis." "So what? That's not. You've had a free ride for a decade. You could have worked. Could have saved. Could have built something. But you didn't. That's not on me." He looked like he wanted to argue, but then just sat down on a dusty cooler instead. He didn't ask me for money. For once, he didn't even try. Inside, Mom was packing up the hall closet. Old picture frames. Holiday decorations. A box of letters that had once belonged to my dad. She held one of the frames in her lap when I walked in. A photo of us from years ago, me at 14, Travis at 11. Her behind us, smiling like we were still a family. "I didn't know you were the one paying," she whispered. "All this time. I thought, your father left enough." I sat across from her, not unkindly. "He didn't. You just never asked?" She stared at the photo, then at me. Her voice was smaller now. "I thought I was doing my best." I didn't say anything. Because maybe she had. Maybe her best was just never enough. A week passed. Then 2. Boxes started stacking up near the front door: Travis's comic books and worn-out sneakers, Mom's porcelain knickknacks she hadn't dusted in years. I never touched any of it. I didn't help them pack. That was the old me, the fixer, the peacekeeper. The one who brought groceries after being told he was selfish, who paid the power bill after being called useless. That version of me had finally stopped showing up. Instead, I went to work. I came home. I lived my life like they weren't part of it anymore. Mom tried once, around day 10, to reset things. She made lasagna, her old peace-offering dish, and set the table for 3 like she used to when I was a kid and Travis had scraped his knee or broken the TV remote. I came in, smelled it, and paused. She smiled. "I made your favorite." I looked at the food. Then at her. "You don't have to do this." Her smile faltered. "I just thought." "I'm not punishing you," I said. "But I'm not pretending anymore either." She didn't say much after that. Just nodded and quietly packed the leftovers into Tupperware. The hardest moment came with Dad's old chair. It had been his before the heart attack, back when he'd still come home from work smelling like engine oil and peppermint breath mints. It had survived every remodel, every spring cleaning. It was old, saggy, and creaked like it had stories to tell. It was also mine now, by every legal and moral right, but I knew what it meant to her. So when I found her in the living room, one hand resting on the worn armrest, tears sliding silently down her cheeks, I didn't say anything. I just stood in the doorway, watching the truth of it all settle over her like dust. She wasn't crying because she lost the chair. She was crying because she finally realized she'd lost me. By the time day 30 came, the house didn't feel like a battleground anymore. It felt like a waiting room. Quiet. Cold. Sterile. The kind of silence that doesn't comfort, only lingers. Travis had already gone, sort of. He packed up what little he hadn't pawned or ruined and moved in with a friend across town. He left behind his hoodie on the back of a chair, 2 empty energy drink cans in the basement, and an apology scrawled on a torn piece of notebook paper. It said, "I didn't know. Sorry." That was it. I didn't need more. I just left the note where it was, unreadable now from the condensation that had bled the ink. Fitting, really? Mom took longer. She was still clinging to something, maybe to the illusion that if she delayed long enough, I'd fold. That she'd walk out of her room one morning to find the locks unchanged, the utilities back on, dinner on the stove, and her son return to his role as quiet provider. But I didn't fold. On the evening of the 30th day, I came home to find her sitting on the porch, 3 suitcases at her feet, a taxi idling at the curb. The sky was heavy with summer heat, the kind that sticks to your skin even after the sun goes down. She didn't look at me as I walked up the driveway. Just stared out at the sidewalk like it might offer her a better answer. "You ready?" I asked gently. She nodded once. "I'll stay with Aunt Beth for a while. She doesn't know everything." I didn't tell her what happened. "That's your call," I said. "But if she asks, tell her the truth." She stood slowly. The woman who once ran PTA meetings and planned Christmas down to the matching napkin rings now looked small. Fragile. Like a version of herself was slipping through her fingers and she couldn't stop it. "I thought you needed us," she said quietly, more to the ground than to me. "I thought you needed me." I looked at her then. Really looked. And maybe for the first time, I saw the woman behind all the blame, the silence, the misplaced loyalty to Travis. "I did," I said. "But needing you cost me everything else." Her lip trembled. But she didn't cry. Instead, she turned, lifted her bags, and walked to the car without another word. The cab pulled away slow. I stood at the edge of the lawn, arms folded, the porch light humming behind me. I didn't wave. I didn't cry. And I didn't look back. When the house emptied, it didn't celebrate. It exhaled. For the first time in years, I could hear it breathe. The soft creak of floorboards untouched by restless pacing. The quiet drip of the bathroom faucet, annoying, but mine to fix. Even the refrigerator seemed to hum differently. Quieter. Calmer. I took 2 days off work. Not because I needed the time, but because I wanted to feel what it was like to just exist inside these walls. Without judgment. Without noise. Without being constantly measured and found lacking. On the first morning, I brewed coffee in silence. Sat at the kitchen table, sun pouring in from the east window, and read a book I'd been meaning to finish for years. No one asked why I was being antisocial. No one said I was wasting time. No one complained that the eggs were too runny or the toast too dry. It was just me. That night, I cleaned out the pantry. It was full of expired cans, half-used spices no one remembered buying, old grocery lists scribbled on receipts. I tossed what I didn't want, organized the rest. It sounds small, I know, but it felt like claiming something. Room by room, I peeled away the history they'd left behind. The scuff marks Travis made dragging his boots across the floor. The dent in the hallway wall from when Mom threw a photo frame during an argument she swore never happened. The tiny T+L carved into the windowsill upstairs, something I never noticed before and didn't care to ask about. I patched. I painted. I pulled up carpet in the living room and found hardwood beneath, scratched but sturdy, like it had been waiting to be uncovered. Then came the box. It was tucked away in the back of the closet in the guest room, behind old board games and a broken vacuum. Inside were receipts, court letters, bank statements, all addressed to me. All from years ago. Late fees I'd paid. Collection notices I'd negotiated down. Even the check stubs from the loan I took out to cover Travis's second DUI. None of it had ever been acknowledged. Not once. I stared at the papers for a long time. Not angry. Not sad. Just stunned. I'd forgotten how much I gave them. And how little they noticed. It wasn't just money. It was time. Dreams. My 20s. All quietly traded away for the hope that someday I'd be more than just the responsible one. But that hope had died the night I dropped the deed on the table. I buried it beneath their silence and my own. Now, in the emptiness of this house, I didn't feel grief. I felt space. The 31st day arrived without fanfare. No calls. No texts. No knock at the door asking for one more chance, one more explanation. I checked the locks, the mailbox, the back gate. Everything still, everything mine. I stood at the threshold that evening, a coffee in hand and the air just starting to cool from a long summer day. Across the street, kids rode bikes between sprinklers. A neighbor waved. The breeze smelled like cut grass and distant barbecue. It felt normal. But inside me, something enormous had shifted. I wasn't waiting for approval anymore. Wasn't hanging on to the hope that maybe, just maybe, one day they'd love me the way I needed to be loved. I wasn't bracing for the next guilt trip, the next plea masked as manipulation, the next unspoken expectation that I play the role of invisible backbone. For the first time in my life, I didn't need to prove anything. Not to them. Not to anyone. I had kept the house. Paid the debts. Stood in the fire and came out whole. And I walked through that fire not to win, but to leave. People always talk about breaking free like it's some dramatic moment. A final scream, a door slammed, a car speeding off into the night. But freedom, for me, came in the quiet. In the way the coffee tasted better without tension sitting across the table. In the way I slept through the night without dreams of arguments I could never win. In the fact that I didn't need them to understand why I did it. Because I did. So now I live here. Alone, yes. But free. And if I could tell anyone who feels like I did, stuck, unappreciated, quietly drowning in a house that never felt like home, just one thing, it would be this. You don't have to keep proving your worth to people who've already decided to ignore it. You are not unlovable just because they refuse to love you right. And sometimes, walking away isn't giving up. It's coming home.